thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Jerry, for coming back to Indiana. He has been my friend for some time. We started with the Northside Interfaith Project with Rabbi John Stein, Jerry, myself, and who else was there? Ehsan Bakri from Islam. Imam Ehsan Bakri. And that evolved into Interfaith Alliance for 15 years. And then we merged that to CIC's Council for Interfaith Cooperation, which is at CTS. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting. I am at the age of my life that I have so much to say and nobody wants to listen. So thank you. But I will start with a little lighter note so that it is not that serious thing. So you might have heard this story that on the entrance to heaven, at the gate of the heaven, there were people who were lined up to get into heaven. So the first person that came, an angel was making the record. He asked who you are, and this man was dressed in a long robe with a beard and a cap, and he said, I'm an imam on such and such mosque, and I do this sermon and take Sunday school and teach. So the angel looked at his book and said, okay, I will put you in heaven, but you will be at the lowest level. Next came a young man, a cowboy type of person, had flashy, and he looked at it, he said, what do you do? So I'm a taxi driver in New York. So angel looks at his record and he said, yes, I will let you in and you will be at the highest level in the heaven. So this imam got very upset. He said, I am the imam and I do this and this, and you put me on the lowest level, and you're a taxi driver and you put him on the highest level. Why is that? So the angel said that we go by the result of what people do. When you were preaching, everybody was sleeping, and when he was driving a taxi, everyone was praying. So please don't go to sleep. Today is just introduction. The questions that I have for myself and yourself and my children and grandchildren is what kind of country, what kind of environment we are going to leave for future. We will pass away after a while. My children and their children and their children. You know, when I was the president of Interfaith Alliance, 1986, I think something like that, a delegation from USSR was, at the time it was breaking, came to USA and was touring all the cities, came to us and asked, we want to learn from you, the Americans, how you do the interfaith, because we have never done interfaith in Russia, and we are afraid that when the USSR will break into smaller states, they will start fighting among themselves. So we want to learn from you folks. So the point is, and after that Bosnian war started and all that later on, much later, that world looks up to us, Americans, not only in science and technology and medicine and defense and all those things, but also in these things, including interfaith. As we consider now, after 9/11, all those folks, Muslims, non-Muslims, who were opposed to interfaith, they started doing interfaith. All the mosques and different places. Even countries like Saudi Arabia have an interfaith organization going on. So, I think that is the need of the time, and one of the articles is there, why interfaith is needed. There is a common understanding for all of us. Can we move on to the slides?
Which one?
Or where are you?
Is that the one you want?
Oh, yeah. So this is just saying Assalamu alaikum. Next. And this book that you have in front of you, I'll give you the story about it. I was coming from Marshall University after giving a medical ethics lecture. And there, the medical student had asked me a lot of questions, not only in ethics, but about Islam. And those questions were on my mind while I was driving back. It's a 4-hour drive. And I wrote down or dictated all those questions and answers while I was driving. Then it was reviewed, and this book has been published and has in 11th printing now, and has been translated in many languages, Germans, the Russians, French, and here, and has been distributed at no cost. So I brought 2 copies for you. Next. Why should we learn about Islam? You know, the Muslims, only 42% of Muslims are immigrant Muslims. Remaining 58% are indigenous Muslims. Then Afro-Americans, Caucasians. Caucasians have fairly big numbers, say in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in California, and now Spanish are coming. And my children, they are all born here. So they are all indigenous Muslims. Now, for immigrants like me and Asha, if worse come to worse, you can say like, go back to where you are. I'm a US citizen, he is a US citizen. But how are you going to send anybody else? No way the Afro-American Muslims will go to Africa, and the Caucasians will go to wherever they can. They all stay. So the best way to deal with them is to cooperate with them rather than alienate them. So let's go next. So this is a start, and there have been several studies after it. LA Times polled 1,273 adults nationwide regarding their view of Islam. Next. What is your impression of Islam? The response was only 22% unfavorable, and 64% did not know. Most of the people did not know. Now, after 9/11, it has changed quite a bit. Do you think the religion called Islam is compatible with Western-style political democracy, or is it anti-democratic? The response was 41% anti-democratic, 10% compatible with democracy, and again 49% did not know where the Muslims belong. Next. Do you think the religion called Islam poses a threat to security of United States and Western allies? The response was at that time 37%, now it is something like 52%. 29% threat, and again 1/3 did not know about it. So many people did not know. Next. So the definition of Islam is not that you have a beard or a cap or you're dressed like an Arab. That's not the definition, or you have such a long name, That's not, is action, is the way of life, that you submit your will to the will of God. Submission or surrender. And this is the Kalma. I declare there is no God except one God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. Next. Again, we are not in a small number, about 1.2 billions. I think the Catholics are a little more, but fairly high number all over the world, and Islam is not one type. Islam is not more than maybe 25% are Arabs, rest of them are non-Arabs. The Indians, the Indonesians, the Bangladeshis, big number in China. 19 million Muslims are in Europe from different backgrounds. So, and again, this is, you had Pastor Carlson's slide last Sunday, very similar to this, where they are located. Next. But from many of the studies, although our census is not based on religion, it is considered about 8 million. And as I say, nearly about 55 or so% are indigenous, and the rest of them are immigrants. Next. And the number of immigration is going down, and number of people from locally is going up. Leadership of Muslims in this country is not by immigrant Muslims. It's by people like Hamza Yusuf, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, the Caucasian Muslim, and Siraj Wahad is Afro-American Muslim. So those are the ones who are on the leadership position rather than us, we are lower level. The mosque in Toledo, Ohio. When I came to this country in 1969, there were only 3 mosques in Chicago and about 40 mosques in USA. Now there are close to 2,000 mosques, and even Chicago has probably about 50 mosques. Next, the mosque in Cleveland. Next one. Next. Now, there are beautiful mosques, and there are about 12 mosques in this greater Indianapolis Carmel section, and we are trying to establish the Al-Salam Foundation here, because there was, and the mayor and the local population and Reverend Jerry has been all very helpful in this, because this is a need for it. You know, we have churches, both Coptic, Catholic, and this Mormon church coming up now in this area. So there is a need. What we had, the Muslims of Carmel rented a place, and we started doing, and Jerry has been there on Friday prayer 2 times, or 3 times maybe. Very nice of him. So these are the articles of faith. One is basic belief is faith. Faith, and we will explain later, faith is belief in one God, His angels, His prophet, and His books. And about that the destiny belongs to God. The ownership belongs to God. Then the prayers, that's number 2 are pillar. Fasting in the month of Ramadan, obligatory. Charity or zakat and Hajj. These are 5 pillars. But no building, this building or your house or my house, consists only on the pillars. Pillars are just a foundation to hold walls and roof and ceiling and windows. And those things are the moral code of Islam, which is very similar to moral code of all the faiths. Next. So faith means belief in one God and belief in Prophet Muhammad as his messenger. Belief in all other prophets who preceded Prophet Muhammad. Angels, belief in holy books. Whatever happens, good or bad, is from God, and on the day of judgment. Next, the Quran was not written by one person. He did not know how to read and write. There were only 11 people in Mecca at that time who were literate, and he was not one of them. Muhammad, peace be upon him, was not one of them. So this, what we people believe is this was a revealed book, that the angels brought the message, Angel Gabriel, and then it was transcribed and completed as a book form. Next. But we Muslims believe not only in Quran. In order to be Muslims, we believe in Torah given to Moses, Psalms of David, Bible, Gospel given to Jesus, and Quran. So we have to believe in at least 4 of these books. Next. And this is one of the verses which says the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation described here, the one who created life and death, and that he may test you, which of you is best in conduct. He is almighty and wise. And this way so that you can see better. Next. So this is a verse from Quran in chapter 2, Al-Baqarah, that we believe in God and which is revealed to us, what was revealed to Abraham, Ishmael, Jacob, Isaac, Jacob, and tribes, to Moses and Jesus and other prophets. So we have to believe in all this. This is from Quran. This is part of our faith. Next, please. Now, here is a lesson in 10 Commandments. Many of us do not remember the 10 Commandments, and if you ask him, sometimes you forget. So what I have done here is compare 10 Commandments to verses in Quran to see the similarity, because one of the questions Jerry had sent me is what is common between Islam and Christianity. What is or Judeo-Christianity? What things unite us? 10 Commandments is one of them. So, thou shalt not take any God except one God. That's the first commandment. There is no, and the lower parts are from Quran. There is no God except one God. Next.
Shahid, I want to ask, can you guys hear okay in the background, or should I give them a microphone? Give them the microphone? Yeah. Since you're turning and looking at their...
Yeah, that will be fine.
Okay, so there. Okay.
All right. So that is.
They have to hold that close to it.
No image of God. There is nothing whatsoever unlike unto him. We do not try to take pictures of the prophet or God. Those things are just imagination, human imagination. Next. Thou shalt not use God's name in vain. Make not God's name an excuse to your oath. That you don't swear by God, because if you are not swearing the truth, then you are lying basically on behalf of God. Next. Thou shalt honor thy mother and thy father. What a beautiful teaching. Be kind to your parents if one or both of them attain old age in thy life. Say not a word of contempt, nor repel them or address them in terms of honor. Next. Thou shalt not lie or give false testimony. They invoke a curse of God if they lie, hide not the testimony. So lying is a disease of the heart, actually, is disease of the heart, and that it is fairly big crime for the believers. Next. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Let's pause here and say 2 things. Number 1, in spite of this injunction in Bible and in Quran, people still commit things because of their human weakness, not anything else. And then the Bible would stop the crime like this at the time of the crime. And Islam will prevent the crime, and thou shalt not approach adultery. That is to say, the social mixing of men and women who are not related or married to each other is frowned upon. Therefore, anything which leads to adultery is also, if you read the Bible, adultery is very well condemned. That you gouge out the eye of the person and throw it in the fire, that kind of thing. Next, thou shalt not kill. In spite of such an injunction, killing goes around all around, and from now being done by ISIS and all Taliban and Al Qaeda, from in the past by Genghis Khan, and in between. In crusade. So what happened? They didn't remember what was in the scripture. Now, this verse, if anyone has killed one person, if it is killed whole mankind, this is in Quran, but it was at that time, it is written in Quran, it is ordained to the children of Israel that anyone who has killed, and also next verse it says, anyone who has saved one life, it is as if he had saved. So it was ordered to children of Israel, and through that to us too. Same verse applies to us. So when I was mentioning this in interfaith panel in Houston, Rabbi Siegel, who was on the panel, jumped and he said that, oh, it is in Torah too. And I said, because the author of Torah and Quran is the same. And that's why you see both. Next, thou shalt not steal. And again, stealing goes on in spite of such a commandment given to Moses and to all of us. And then this punishment of stealing is, as I was telling Jerry, that it is not the initial punishment. Initial punishment is asking for repentance, forgiveness, and this is for a habitual thief who would not repent, who would not ask for forgiveness, who would not mend his ways. And so it starts with the cutting of the little finger if he would not change, not the whole hand. And otherwise you will see a lot of Muslims walking around with hands off, Next, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or possession. Do good to your parents, relatives, and neighbors, and saying the Prophet, and one of the greatest things is to have illicit sex with your neighbor. The rights of the neighbor are very well described in both the scriptures and other scriptures. Love thy neighbor. And the same thing the Prophet has said. But sometimes we are not able to define who is a neighbor. Is the neighbor is your own self, relative, or your close friend, or just a physical neighbor. And we think that everyone is a neighbor, including plants and animals who live next door to you. And not only people of other faith. So we have to love the whole environment. Next, thou shalt keep Sabbath holy. The difference between Islamic Sabbath and Christian Sabbath is days are different. But the holiness of Sabbath is Saturday for Jewish people, Monday for Hindus, and Friday. And for us, it's only a few hours, not the whole day or whole night. For Friday, it's just during the prayer and the sermon, and then you go back to your regular business. Next. So the 5 prayers are described for Muslims, 5 different times per day. And one can combine it, some of them, if you are doing work and you do not find time, that you can afternoon prayer, noon prayer, or sunset prayer, or night prayer. But the question comes to why need for 5 prayer? Why not just a prayer or fasting in the morning or fasting at night? Because temptations of the world cause us to divert. After one prayer, we go back to regular ways of doing things, and it's to bring the train back to the track. So these 5 times are described. Next. So we do the prayer standing, and then we bow down, and then we touch the nose to the ground, and say verses of Quran, and at the end say salam to the angel to the right, and salam to the angel to the left, because those are the angels which are recording your deeds. And then we make prayer to God in any language that you want to, about your children, yourself, your job, whatever, So this is Islamic prayer facing Kaaba. We used to face Jerusalem, the mosque in Jerusalem, until the permission came from God to face the Kaaba, which we believe is the first mosque. Next. Now, we think that we invented the way we pray, but that's not the case. Ezra praised the Lord, the great God, and all people lifted their hands and responded, Amen, Amen. then they bow down and worship the Lord with their faces to the ground. So touching the face to the ground, nose to the ground, forehead to the ground, is the highest way of humility, that you submit yourself and asking God for His favors. And Catholics do it, Muslims do not change anything. You can pray anyway. This is for obligatory prayer. Other prayers you can do while you're driving in your heart and before you wake up. Next. Fasting. Fasting in the month of Ramadan is obligatory, but you can do other fasting. And the fasting is not something new for Muslims. Fasting was prescribed or is still being practiced by people of other faith. The Catholics have Lent, Hindus do it on Monday, Jewish on Yom Kippur. Many religions, but for us it is a very formal month of training from dawn to dusk. And in this hemisphere, it's about 16 hours. In summer, 16 hours, and in northern hemisphere, make up to 8 hours. Not only abstinence of food, drink, or smoking, or sexual relation while you are fasting. And duration is from now. Now, the fasting is not a physical exercise. God does not need anything from us. Yeah, Quran says, "Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara ilallah wallah ghaniyyun hamid." O you mankind, it's an address to mankind, not to Muslims. O you mankind, it is you who is needy of God, and it is God who is above all needs. So He does not need charity from us. He does not need fasting from us or even prayer from us. Basically, we do it to train ourselves spiritually. It's a month of spiritual training. And fasting of the not only digestive system, but also your habit, your tongue. You are not supposed to respond in provocation. If somebody is provoke you, and then you keep quiet and say that I am fasting. Next. Sadaqah is also in Hebrew to purify or to cleanse your legally earned money. You cannot be Robin Hood or steal and then give charity from that. So the thing which you have earned 2.5% and you have saved it, that you can give to the poor. This is the right of the poor over the wealth of the rich. So sadaqah is important. Zakat is important. They are again a regular charity and a zakat. Zakat is obligatory. I think he has gone, but anyway. So what the matter is that if you are do not have saving, for example, zakat is not due. If you have spent on your legal means, taking care of your children and your family, and then zakat is not due on you. Only if you have saved. Next, please. Hajj. Hajj is going to the pilgrimage to Mecca. Once in your lifetime, if you can physically or financially can afford it. If you cannot afford it physically or financially, then it is forgiven. If you have visited at times when you are, this is not a Hajj, month of Hajj, it is called Umrah, and Umrah is also recorded as a smaller Hajj, because if someone dies without performing Hajj, he has only one Umrah, that would be taken as a Hajj for that person on the day of account. Next, please. Next, dress code is important. This is how you will see what happens during the Hajj. People circle around this way in the Kaaba 7 times praising, and this is in the month of Hajj in the tradition of Prophet Abraham. And he built the Kaaba with his son Ishmael, and we do once a year. About very strenuous, about 5 to 6 days pilgrimage. Next. This is what we call black stone. We believe that this stone is a meteorite brought from heaven when Adam was brought in, and that has been installed by Ishmael into this building called Kaaba, and we are supposed to kiss it if you can get there, close to that. I have not been here. I've been to Hajj twice and Umrah 5-6 times. There's a big crowd, and I cannot threaten my life just to get close to it, because there are thousands and thousands of people there. It's just the way Prophet did it, and we follow it, not because this stone had any significance itself. Next. This is the original mosque in Jerusalem. This is the place, the Dome of Rock, where we believe that Prophet was brought in by the angel, and from there he ascended to heaven, and he also had led all the prophets into prayer before this ascension took place. We were praying to that direction until the order prophet came to pray to the direction of Kaaba. Then during the prayer, the direction was changed. Next. This is the inside of the Dome of Rock in Jerusalem. That's the place where Prophet ascended, as we believe in. And some people believe that it was a spiritual journey, and most people believe it was a physical journey. Next. So who was Muhammad? Peace be upon him. Born in a noble tribe of Mecca in Arabia, his ancestry goes back to Ishmael, son of Abraham. His father died before his birth. His mother died when he was 6. He did not attend a formal school. He was raised first by a nurse, as it was the custom in those days, and then his uncle and grandfather. Next. He was also known as a righteous person before he was declared prophet at age 40. Next. This is the place he used to go, his cave in Mecca, where he used to sit down and do the meditation and think about the condition of his people. It's called Cave of Him. And that's where the angel came in at one time and asked him to recite. Next. So these were the first verses which were revealed to Muhammad. He was asked to recite, and he said that I do not know how to read or recite. I'm an unlettered person. So the order was to read in the name of thy Lord who created you, created man from a clod, and read thy Lord is the most bounteous, who taught by the pen, taught men which he did not know. This is the first revelation. Next paragraph. Next. Now this event is, some people believe, is also described in Bible. And the book is delivered to him that I have not learned, saying, read, and I prayed thee, and he said, I am not learned. So this event, some people think that it is, who is I? Is it Jesus? Yes, that's what we believe in. And who is that person? That is Muhammad. Next. And Muhammad, we believe that is foretold in Bible. There was a Jewish tribe in Bethlehem who knew that there would be another prophet coming in, and they had migrated from Jerusalem all the way to a place called Khaybar in Mecca and settled there, waiting for the new prophet to come in. And they thought that prophet will come from the line of Isaac.
Was that what the division, Shahid, between the Jewish and the Muslims have always been?
Basically, division starts from there. And there were other reasons after that, but main reason was at that point the Jewish tribe which had came and settled in Khaybar for centuries, they were waiting that this prophet will come into line of Isaac. And when the prophet came as prophet in the line of Ishmael, which was confirmed by a Christian priest who was the cousin of his wife, that yes, this is the prophet, then they got kind of upset, at that point. But then there were other things afterwards. Right. Yeah. But then, actually, there are a lot of things common between Jews, and I have, spoken about what things which are common between Jews and us. I think whatever you see now is more of a political rather than theological differences. So it is said that I will raise them up a prophet from among their brothers, and who will be like unto Moses. And I will put my word, this is God saying, in his mouth, and he will speak unto them what I command. So Muhammad did not say the things on his own. Either it was the direct revelation to him, or even if what is considered as his personal opinion, it is not personal, it was inspired in revelation. You can read the reference in Bible and go and read more explanation, and when I come back next week, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because this is what I am told to believe in. Next. Unless I go away in the counselor. The counselor is simple English translation. The Arabic is parakletos, or comforter. And that is one of the name of Muhammad, which is Ahmad. Ahmad is the one who is praised one, comfort. Unless Jesus had to go at that point, because for 33 years of his life, basically he was doing the teaching only for 3 years, preaching and teaching in the last 3 years. And his mission was not complete at that time. He was raised to what we believe in, to heaven, to be with God. And then we believe in coming back of Jesus. We are in wait for Jesus to come back, not Muhammad or Moses to come back. Because Jesus had to live a full life. Muhammad lived a full life, married, father, all kinds of things. So Jesus says that unless I go away, the Comforter will not come to you. He will not speak on his own. He will speak only what he hears, and he will tell you what is yet to come. Because Muhammad foretold the coming of all these things which will happen until the end of earth. Next. The collection of what Muhammad said, apart from what was revealed, is kept in a book called Bukhari, and there are several other variations of that book. There are 9 volume books of his sayings of Muhammad, and some of the sayings I have quoted, entered in that booklet that you have, what is the famous saying of Muhammad. Next. So, for example, to gladden the heart of human, these are one of the sayings. To feed the hungry, to help the afflicted, to lighten the sorrow of the woeful, and to remove the suffering of injured. Next. This is the place in Medina. Now we are moving from Mecca to Medina, where Muhammad migrated and preached and gave sermon. This is the mosque of the Prophet in Medina, and this is the place where he. Now the Turkish Ottoman Empire actually built this way of the mosque. It was very humble mosque when it was originally built. Next. And this is what it was. At the time of Hajj, half of the people are there and half of the people are in Mecca and then migrate back and forth. So it's part of the Hajj to visit Medina and offer your prayers at the grave of Prophet Muhammad. Next. This is the outside of the door where I'm taking you to the places where you have not been or will not be there. I guess there is a law there that, so these are our friends, but I guess we have to follow their laws, So anyone unless you has declared Islam will not be allowed to go there. I don't want to be political on this issue. I would, if I was running the Saudi Arabia, I would have put maybe some kind of corridor and let anybody come and visit, because otherwise I have to bring these things to you. This is the grave of a prophet and his companion. The bigger circle is him, and the smaller circles are his first two caliphs, Umar and Abu Bakr next, and behind that. Now let's talk a few words what we believe in Jesus. Now the Christians sometimes think that we are opposing Jesus. We are not opposing Jesus in many ways. We believe in a lot of his miracles, and I think I have copied a chapter of Quran called Chapter of Mary, 19th chapter. Next. I have been there where he was born, and took slide myself of this. Next. Islamic calendar is 10 days shorter than the regular calendar. What Jews have done, they have combined both the Gregorian calendar and lunar calendar, and they have fixed calendar. We get 10 days shorter each year, therefore Ramadan keeps moving. Next. The Islamic law, because there is a kind of fear going on that the Sharia is going to take over and cut everybody's hand on this and that. Islamic law or Sharia is not about capital punishment, or it is about practicing Islam. When we offer prayer, that is the Sharia. When we give zakah, that is the Sharia. Sharia means basically finding a way in to please God. And there are several books of jurisprudence which are given. All these ways this Sharia is defined. Right? To apply Sharia on one aspect, criminal justice, is not the right way. Because some of the criminal justice is also described fairly well in Bible too. Sharia is basically how to deal with people, how to deal with text. What is prohibited? For example, this is part of the Sharia. Disrespect to our parents and elders. The food, the pork products, alcohol, intoxicating drug, premarital sex, gambling, lying, stealing. These are all components of Sharia. This is a universal moral code which is Sharia, and unfortunately the Sharia which has been being applied in Sudan or other places is being looked in a different way, because that's the only part they are applying, and they are not applying the moral code of Islam. Next. The dress code. There is no way to dress. I know the way I'm dressing or the other, they don't have to be dressed like an Arabs, because the Arabs dressed the same way before they became Muslim and after they became Muslim. Their dress did not change. Their names many times did not change. So the dress code has a code that certain parts of the body has to be covered and they should not be exposed. That is what they. And how do you cover them? It should not be too thin, it should not be too short, certain parts. So it is what we call aura, A-W-R-A. Aura is a way of covering a body, and again, as far as the head is concerned, the veil is not necessary. Some people think that it's necessary, but they are more of opinion, because when the dress is described in Quran that what should be covered, the last sentence of that verse is that the best dress is the dress of God consciousness. That if you are not God conscious, it doesn't matter how you dress. So I think it's a morality code rather than the modesty code, rather than a covering from head to toe and with one eye open, as you see niqab in Afghanistan. Those kind of things are cultural thing more than religious thing. Next. The hijab the same way, as you see that about 7, 8 women with a different thing, different types of hijab, some of them don't have hijab. So, although what was the words which was revealed, that the wives of the believer have a higher moral responsibility, because at that time what was happening, this is time when Islam came in, that the pagan Arabs who were not believers, they were still knew that they were descendant of Abraham, and the Kaaba was there and they were circling around the Kaaba. They were not Muslim, and they forgot that they were descendants of Abraham. They had their women walk around the Kaaba naked. That was their, that was, so the order to Muslim women came that you should cover so that you will be identified as a Muslim and no one will attack you. It came for their protection. So anyway, as you see, many American women cover and many do not cover their head, so it's their personal choice for them. Next.
We have about 3 minutes.
I'll be done. Next. The status of women is what we have seen, going on is more of a cultural thing right now. But Prophet always mentioned high respect. He only stood in respect to greet 2 persons in his life, and both of the women. One was his daughter, and one was his foster mother. That when they came to see him, he would stand up. But the kings and the tribal leaders and all those people who came, he always respected women. And what has happened to Muslim women is because of colonization. When the colonial army came, the tribal leaders thought that if you put them inside the house and don't do this, that was not tradition. Next. Next. The rights of women. The men and women who believe are protector of each other. They are given equal reward and equal punishment. It's not that women are punished more. And women in Islam can own property, has right to inherit her share, has right to choose her husband, can seek separation or divorce. You are talking about this 1436 years ago. When did the American woman got right to divorce, or right to vote? So all this was going, and she is the owner of her own earnings. If she has a job, she doesn't have to spend on her husband. She has all her money. Next. What is jihad? Word jihad is translated here as a holy war. It's a totally wrong translation. Jihad means a struggle. Wajahid fi sabilillah, strive in the cause of God, with their money and with their person. Jihad is not picking up a sword and start killing anyone. Jihad is the conquest of your evil temptation. It's a spiritual thing. It's called inner jihad. I have a writing called inner jihad. And external jihad, which we talk about as a holy war, is when Islam and Muslims are attacked, and that defense is declared by a body, either the king or a body of Islamic scholars. Individually, you cannot start fighting with others and to call it external jihad. Next, this is a cover. It's actually written by a Christian. The way it is portrayed. Next. Now, this thing was most unfortunate. Very sad. Who did it? Why did it? Who were the people? 19 of the hijackers were actually from Saudi Arabia. None of them from Iran or Pakistan or Iraq. I mean, how did they get to do this? We have no idea. I mean, we as a US citizen, I believe what is said. But there are people like Mike Moore and other, a lot of people who are saying, questioning few things. But that's how the side is a story that changed the history for many part of the world. Next. And this question was put in the Time magazine, why do they hate us? This is not true. If they hate, because it goes to the past. I don't want to go on much on the politics because I have 1 minute left out of the 3 minutes. But People do not hate America or American. This is some hates policies of the government, and oppose the policies of the government, but not necessarily the country itself or people itself. They are friends. Next. And this is what happens in Palestine. This is what happens. Many of my patients are Palestinian, and they are not Muslims. They are Palestinian Christians. They are one living in this Carmel, like Hori restaurant, Mina Hori and Ales Hori, if you know. And they carry Palestinian passport in their pocket. Next one. Muslims are always suspected of doing all these things. When this happened in Oklahoma City, the media said Muslims did it. Next. And this cartoon I don't need to go into, but these people who are going that I'm a Christian and believe in all Muslims should be killed, and I'm the other one saying that I am Muslim and I want all Christians to be killed. But why? We are different, and why we are going in the same direction, and the bottom is they are all going to hell. Next. This was a star which portrayed a terrorist picture. This is actually a profile of a terrorist. Now what happened? After this guy, the first guy, he looked more like a Sikh, and many Sikhs were attacked in the country because they look like Muslims. Next. But Muslims are with you. The Muslims who are praying for the victims of 9/11, victims of Boston, Muslim children. So these are that we need to bring into cooperation and with each other. Next.